Durdle Magic. Hello and welcome back. You can follow our post on Twitter and Facebook at DurdleMTG to stay up to date on our latest videos and other posts, and you can join a more robust discussion about Casual Commander at our blog, TheDiceBag.blog. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this content to help the channel and the blog grow. Another way you can support the channel, though, is through our affiliate links in the description below. If you're looking for single sealed product or gaming accessories to protect all of that glory, please consider clicking the links in the description. Now, grab some spells, it's time to Durdle. Hello and welcome back to one of my deck techs. Haven't done one of these in a while, but in this one, I'll be doing a favorite commander of mine, Yennett Cryptic Sovereign. However, I have built this deck to be more oriented towards combat and the control of combat to gain advantages. I do want to mention here as a caveat to the video though that some of these cards are not available on Magic Online, so the deck I have online isn't the same one I could build in paper. Our categories we're covering today are Turn Them Away, Make Them Stray, Into the Fray, and Better to Pray. And to our first category, we have Turn Them Away. First and foremost, we want to have people attack, but not our face, not us. This is easily solved through two means, Pillow Fort and Fog effects. Employing some Pillow Fort in the deck, I use cards like the basic Propaganda and Ghostly Prison, also the Archon of Absolution, and technically the Pillow Fort but actually more Rattlesnake-like cards of Marchesa's Decree and Teysa Envoy of Ghosts. All of these can cost opponents resources they may not want to pay, such as mana or having their creatures blown up or their life totals severely reduced, depending on the kind of attack. If other players are still swinging into you, make them pay for it otherwise. Outside of cards like Ghostly Prison and Propaganda, we can use fog effects and other means to turn them aside. These effects include the fog effects like Darkness, Dawn Charm, Batwing Broom, Ink Shield, Comeuppance, and Selfless Squire. Darkness is the only card mentioned here that only stops combat damage, and it is just basically a fog in black, but the other cards have other benefits. Dawn Charm is also a counterspell against something that targets you, and can regenerate a creature you control. Batwing Broom can make the token player really regret ever swinging at you by seriously draining their life total, as long as you pay white and black. Ink Shield, while expensive at 5 mana, can give you the damage you need to crack back and end the game against any of your opponents, and all of those tokens also fly. It essentially doubles the damage they tried to deal to you. Comeuppance is another card you can use to prevent damage, and then the creatures may be able to kill themselves with the effect, but this is also very useful for things like Chandra's Ignition or Atherfrux Reservoir, because it will also take the damage from that source and redirect it at the source's controller. Otherwise, we also have Selfless Squire, who's much like Ink Shield in that it prevents damage and gets larger based on that damage, although the crackback isn't as good because it has none of its own evasion. However, it does end up being a decent blocker, and if they have nothing left and attack you with everything, that can be lethal right there. Our next category is Make 'em Stray. While I don't use goat effects in this build, I do use something similar in the cards Gideon Jura, Siren's Call, Imaginary Threats, Bident of Thassa, and Shipwreck Singer. Gideon Jura, Bident of Thassa, and the Shipwreck Singer can be used multiple times in the game, making them very useful. While the one-time Siren's Call and Imaginary Threats, assuming you don't recur them anyway, can clear a path forward for your own creatures. Each can force an attacks into bad conditions, or just when your opponents don't want to do anything but sit around and durdle. With these, we also don't force everyone to attack all the time, so we don't generate the focus and hate of a whole table if we're using something like Goad repeatedly. This allows us to make deals and quote-unquote be helpful. Likewise, cards like Sudden Spoiling and Polymorphous Jest can make all of your opponent's big scary creatures be easily crushed by your own creatures during your attack, or when someone else attacks. They can even turn the tides for someone you want to help. Remember that your opponents are also potential lines of play to weaponize against your other opponents. Our next category is Into the Fray. Of course, being a deck built around combat, we want to get in there and swing with our own creatures. Yennett herself is hard to block with her abilities of Flying and Menace, but we have other creatures that will gain us an advantage on the swing. Varragoth Bloodsky Sire has Death Touch, which means if somebody wants to block it, they may be trading something they don't want to trade. Other than that, when it attacks though, we can pay for the Boast ability, tutoring something to the top of the deck, and if we let that resolve first before Yennett's ability triggers, we can probably cast whatever we just tutored for. Temna the Weaver rewards us with even more cards afterward if we pay life after the attacks as long as we hit somebody. Likewise, Brina rewards us for both attacking and keeping life totals even, and when our opponents do it to themselves or are forced to. Cemetery Illuminator helps us with the top of our deck, where we could look at any time, and possibly be able to cast it if a card exiled with Cemetery Illuminator shares a type with it. Yuriko, the Tiger Shadow, does the usual life drain and can potentially help us with other ETBs later, like bouncing back a Karmic Guide or Angel of the Dire Hour to our hand if we really need it. Some other cards that help us when they trigger in combat on the swing are Sword of Hearth and Home, Exploroscope, and Sword of the Animist. All of them can get lands from the deck or off the top of the library, and in a way to help reduce the whiffs for the Yennett, and the sword can trigger more ETBs after combat, which is very good for the deck strategy and simply untaps one of our creatures if necessary. Our last category is Bear to Prey. Like I said, this is not trying to be a passive deck, although it may be a little slow being Esper. We want to get in there and smack some faces. However, sometimes we will be behind or targeted down, and we need an opening to finish up the job if our machinations didn't work out so well. First up, we have Reigns of Power, which we can trade our field away for an opponent's. This is especially good against someone who just used something like Cyclonic Rift, Winds of Abandon, or Sell the Wreckage. It can also be a really expensive fog because if a creature switches controller in combat, they are considered to not be attacking any longer. Akroma's Will is a great combat-oriented finisher, board protector, and game ender. It being instant speed is just perfect for anything we want to accomplish. With some Surveil or Scry, and if we know if Magister Sphinx is on top of the deck and attack with Yennett, we can change the calculus and take someone out of the game with a surprise lethal attack after it enters the battlefield. With enough creatures and enough keyword abilities, Akroma Vision of Ishiador will be able to pump our team into lethal range quickly. This is particularly deadly in tandem with Aldrich Lunak Marshal and effective with other cards like Angelic Skirmisher or the before mentioned Akroma's Will. This concludes this deck tech featuring Yennett with a focus on combat-oriented abilities and strategy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and there's a link to a sample deck in the description below. Again, some of these cards like Siren's Call or Inkshield are not available on Magic Online. Please subscribe, leave a like and a comment, and share this video with someone you might think would be interested in seeing this deck tech. I'll see you next time for another deck tech or another gameplay video. Until then, stay safe out there.